You're listening.
Yo! What's up, everybody? I'm Bob Walters. This is Locked Up Sports, and welcome to a live edition here. Breaking news, and the Mets have their ace now. They have a great top two. They make a trade with Milwaukee. They get Freddie Peralta. They get Tobias Myers, who's a young kid, a young pitcher, probably going to pitch out of the bullpen. And listen, for all those haters of Stearns, just for the last 3 months, you got to admit that he is really taking care of business now in this last week. Listen, they arrived to the party, but they got there late, but they're there now. And this team is really taking shape. And I told you for the last couple months, just give the guy a chance. And it's gonna all come together. It really is. He's really in the last week just getting Bo Bichette, Lewis Roberts Jr. yesterday, and then tonight around about an hour and a half ago, picking up Freddie Peralta. Now they had to give away a good, these are two good players the Mets are giving away. They're giving away Brandon Sproat, who they've been talking, and Jet Williams, two guys they've been talking about forever. They've been saying that these guys are going to be coming up and they're going to be, stars in the Mets, and everyone's going to love them. Well, now here we are at, basically the 11th hour, and the Mets finally get themselves a pitching. They go for the pitching last, which is not something that, we really thought was going to happen. 1 second. Let me just make sure we're going good here. One second. 1 second here, folks. We live here? Let's see. Hold on. I'm going to go off and come right back on, guys. I don't think we're live right now. Let me see. Live. Okay, no, we're good. We're streaming. But anyway, so like I was saying, for all those people who were killing Stearns over the past couple months, he's finally gotten the job done, right? He's gotten you the outfield that you needed. He got you good up the middle. We got Luis Roberts Jr., who is a good player. Listen, he had a somewhat Cap. Jet Williams is going to be a star. Jet Williams, you know what? He might be a star. But they better sign Peralta. If they don't sign Peralta, then they're going to be in trouble because it's only a 1-year thing. So you don't want to give up Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams for Peralta because, Tobias Myers, he's a nice little, he's out of the bullpen. He's a kid. You don't really know what you're getting. You're getting a good pitcher in Sproat. And Jet Williams, I haven't seen Jet Williams play, but they've done nothing but talk him up and talk about how great he's going to be, and he's the future center fielder and all this other stuff, and he's killing pitching down there, and he's a shortstop, and So listen, I don't know how he's going to be. I think this deal is not done until they sign Freddie Peralta, and I think they'll get it done. I don't think that Cohen makes this deal without knowing that he's gonna, he'll go all in on Peralta. He'll get him, but with him and McLean now at the top of this rotation, and the bullpen, I think is somewhat fixed. I mean, listen, we lost Diaz. Obviously, it hurts, but overall, I think the Mets have a better bullpen than they had last year. The closer, because Devin Williams 2 years ago was the best closer, was one of the top 3 closers in baseball, and then Pete hit the home run off him, and then everybody kind of soured on him. He went to the Yankees. He wasn't great. You're a Yankee fan, Rogers. So you know that he wasn't great, but he picked it up a little bit towards the end, and he was good in the postseason for you guys. So I think the Mets bullpen is even better. And this Tobias Myers, he seems all right. I mean, like I said, he's a kid. He's played 2 years. We'll see how he does. But Peralta is fantastic. He's a bona fide ace on the staff now. He was 17-6 last year, 2.7 ERA. He struck out 200 batters. He had a whip of 1.08, and he was 5th, I think, in the Cy Young voting. With those numbers, it sounds like he should be a little better than fifth, to be honest with you. But hey, listen, we will take it. So here's his stats from last year. Hold on one second. Let me bring them up. If anybody would like to call into the show, give us your opinion, talk on the air, just scan the QR code. We'll put you right up. No problem. 1 second. Here we go. Where is it? Of course, I can't find what I'm looking for now. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's his stats from last year. So 17-6, 270 ERA, a 200 strikeouts. He was 9th in strikeouts, 7th in ERA, 4th with 17 wins. And like I said, he's now a top of the rotation guy that the Mets desperately needed. Now you have him, you have McLean. You still have Jonah Tong, who I think might end up even being in the bullpen for a little bit. But best Mets ace. Oh yeah, well, since DeGrom, of course. Definitely the best Mets ace since DeGrom. I agree with that. Hold on one second. I'll put you on the screen here. Best Mets ace since DeGrom. Good move. Yeah, no, I agree. They're better than the. Listen, you guys take your small little picks that you guys are the small little signings that you guys are doing now. The leftovers after we decided we didn't want your guy. Bellinger, you guys sign him up, and hey, now the Mets go. Now, as far as the guys we're giving up, Sproat and Jet Williams, like I said, Jet Williams I haven't seen play, but everybody that has seen him play has said nothing but fantastic things about how good he's going to be and about how good he is down on the farm, and that he was coming up this year. He was ready to be a major leaguer. And Sproat, we saw Sproat, right? He wasn't as dominant as they made it out to be, but it's also just a handful of starts. Now you could say it's a handful of starts with McLean too, but McLean, I have no reservations about McLean. I think he's an ace. I think he's going to be an ace. I think he's probably going to be like a Freddie Peralta type of pitcher. And if we could get those two at the top of the rotation, and then you have Senga, and if Senga's good, we know Senga is absolutely dominant if he stays healthy. And now that he doesn't have Pete flipping him balls on spring training plays, I think the sky's the limit. That's my little shot at the Pete people that are killing everybody. And I actually, even just in the 5 minutes before I went on here, I saw people killing Stearns still. Oh, this is going to be terrible. It's a 1-year rental. Listen, Cohen wouldn't have made this deal if he wasn't going to sign him. And you say, how do you know he's going to sign him? Because he could overwhelm him. I would say Peralta's signed. I'd be surprised if he's not signed before the season starts. And if he does, let it go past the beginning of the season, I'm sure they'll do we're not talking during the season, one of those deals. The Mets will get it done. But as far as everybody just piling on the Mets, that they don't have any stars, they got rid of their stars. They're not bringing people in. This is New York. It's time to get it together. Well, you know what? In the last week, they've gotten it together. And Bo Bichette is a superstar. I think he's a superstar in the making. He's just a level below, calling him a superstar. But he puts bat to ball. He's a gap hitter. He steals bases. He runs. Louis Roberts Jr., he's a little bit more of a question mark. You don't really know what you're going to get. Listen, in 2023, he had a great year. He had a ton of home runs. He plays a real good center field. I think it's good now that you keep Tyrone Taylor as a bench player. Like I've been saying, like he's a hole in the lineup, but Taylor's an automatic out. But if you keep him now as a bench player, he could come in late and play defense for you. And with Bo, and like I said, with Bo Bichette, and then Jorge Polanco is, listen, if you watched the postseason last year, I've been saying it forever. If you watched the postseason last year, you saw that Polanco is a clutch hitter. He can hit in big spots. He gets big hits when you need them. He's not going to hit a ton of home runs. He's not going to, flash the leather over there at first base. I think he's going to be in a platoon at first base. But if you need a big hit, he's a big league ball player, and he's a good hitter. He's a professional hitter. He gets the hits when you need him. He won two games with walk-off hits in the playoffs for the Mariners last year. Listen, I think the team's really coming together. I'm not a big Nimmo. I think Nimmo was average at best, right? I think Nimmo's been overrated by Mets fans forever. I think Pete, I would have loved to have Pete back at 2 years, maybe 3, probably not 3 though, 2 years max. And then I would have loved to have Diaz back. I think they screwed up on Diaz, but I think that's really the only screw up that they've had is Diaz, because he went for 3 years. He went to the Dodgers for 3 years. And if you want to you're trying to win the whole thing, you're gonna have to beat the Dodgers. And the worst case scenario that we could have is sometime in October, we're down a run, bases loaded in the ninth or 10th inning, and they bring, and Diaz is in there and he gets out of it, or he comes in and he just, he has one of those outings where he's just untouchable, which Diaz can have. And then you're going to sit there and go, oh, Cohen let him walk for $3 million, this and that. So I think the Diaz thing was a screw up. But besides that, I liked the way they've handled and approached this offseason. They didn't get pressured by the fans who have been killing them. Trust me, I'm in all these Mets groups that I shared this thing to, that I was in. They've been killing Stearns and Cohen, and he wants the casino, and that's all he cares about. Like, listen, he cares about the team. He wants to win. He doesn't want to come to. He's really famous because he's the Mets owner. He doesn't want to come to New York and just, he's already screwed up, with his 5-year championship plan, right? Screw up, because that didn't happen. That was probably unrealistic. Screwed up the other day when he was going after Tucker with his little white smoke joke. Oh, let me know when you see the white smoke. That's a misstep. He thought he had it in the bag. He's been outbid by the Dodgers, but also that's the only team that's outbid them. You could say, he's cheap, but the Mets have outbid every team in every bidding war except the Dodgers. And you really can't blame the guy for that, right? You're getting outbid by one team. The Mets outbid the Phillies in different negotiations. They've outbid the Yankees in different negotiations. And the big one, the Soto one. And I think if they didn't make the deal with Bo Bichette, they would have outbid the Yankees at the one with what's his face this year. So I think that it's a big deal. It's a good deal. The Mets got exactly what they needed. They needed top of the rotation, starting pitching, and you got one of the best ones out there. Now you got to lock them down. It's important that you lock them down, because that if you don't lock them down, then trading Sproat and Jet Williams for 1 year Peralta, and if you better win big, because if you don't and he walks and he goes to the Dodgers next year or something like that, then it's not a good deal. It's not a good deal at all. But like I said, I think they're going to get it done. I don't think they would have made this deal if they didn't think they could get it done. And as far as Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat, we wish them luck. And I think Sproat's going to be a solid pitcher, but they kept their best prospects. Jet Williams, they had to listen. You're not getting Peralta, whether it be for a year or anything, without putting in a big prospect. The Mets gave him 2 because they didn't want to wait till the trade deadline. You probably could have got this done with just Sproat at the trade deadline, or maybe Jet Williams and another prospect. You probably could have got it done at the trade deadline, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to get in a hole here with your pitching. Mets pitching was bad last year, and that was a big sticking point. They couldn't get anybody out down the stretch. The bullpen couldn't get anybody out. The starters couldn't go more than 3 innings. I mean, for crying out loud, we went like weeks, or like 6 or 8 weeks without a starting pitcher going 6 innings. 6 innings. Peralta's going to give you innings. Peralta's going to go 6. He's going to take the ball in big spots. And McLean, I have no reservations about McLean. I think he's going to be a star, ace pitcher, hopefully for the Mets for the next 15 years. But Peralta right now coming in his prime, coming off a big season where he was 5th in the Cy Young Award voting, where he was 17 wins, where he had an ERA of under 3. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. The Mets just have kind of just stepped in it perfectly here in the last week. And for everybody that was just rushing and killing them about Pete and Nimmo, and you throwing everybody away, and you don't care about this team, and they're going to win 70 games. Well, you know what? Freddie Peralta might win 20 by himself. They're not going to win 70 games. They have 2 Hall of Famers in their lineup, in Soto and Lindor. You got Bo Bichette, who's just coming into his own now. He's a solid player, a gap hitter. He's going to get a ton of RBIs. He's going to be on base all the time. He puts bat to ball. And then you have Devin Williams, who just, everybody forgets just 3 years ago, he was the best closer in baseball. And then he kind of fell off a little bit. But now, maybe he's ready to come back. You got Luke Weaver, who's, listen, he wasn't great last year, but 2 years ago, he was excellent. Nobody could hit him 2 years ago. In the playoffs, he was excellent. And it's kind of coming together. And I think, listen, I think you got to be happy. If you're a Mets fan and you're not happy, then you know what? Nothing's going to make you happy. You won't be happy about anything. The Mets get their pitcher. They even got a little bullpen help here. We'll see how Myers is. Like I said, I've never really seen him pitch, so I don't really have much to say about Tobias Myers. Seems like he's average to above average. Bullpen, and a bullpen average to above average could go either way, right? They could go and have a great year, or they could go and they can't get anybody out. Like the Mets, bullpens, I told you, bullpens are something that you could fix in season. And I know you could laugh about that because of last year with the Mets, but we all thought, including you, who was sitting there going, oh, the bullpen, you thought that when they made those trades, the Mets had the best bullpen in baseball. And then 2 weeks later, the guys who were supposedly great couldn't get anybody out. So big news tonight on the Mets front, a big trade. And I think it's a fair trade. I'm not going to sit here and say the Mets fleeced Milwaukee, because they certainly didn't. They got a guy, a superstar pitcher that's only got 1 year left on his contract, and they had to give up two really good prospects. Like these guys, like Jet Williams. The Mets have been talking about Jet Williams forever. And Brandon Sproat, we saw last year, he came up, he pitched a big game. He pitched a couple good starts. He gave the Mets innings, which they desperately needed. And he's on all accounts supposed to be a middle to top of the line rotation guy. He could if his ceiling is probably like a number 2, and his basement is probably like a number 3 or a number 4. So the Brewers got good value out of this, and the Mets certainly got what they needed, everything they needed. And now I think you just now you're okay. Now you feel better. You take a deep breath as a Mets fan. You're like, all right, it's not going to go in there with nobody. They didn't get rid of Pete and Nimmo and the whole bunch of them just to sit there and save money, like some of you thought. And like I said, if you're still somebody who's sitting there and complaining about what the Mets are doing and Stern sucks and he's small market, I don't know what to tell you, because the Mets have spent a boatload of money here in the last week. And Peralta, and wait till you see the Peralta deal, because it's going to be massive. Pitchers get massive deals, especially big time starting pitchers like Peralta, and he's in a contract year. That's why I say that they'll get it done maybe before the season, but the Mets are going to have to really overwhelm him to get it done at the beginning of the season, because he's going into a contract year. I think they might. Let's see, moves a bit. Yeah, exactly. Let's put my boy here, Fernando Bonilla. Absolutely. Listen, you knew, you really think they were going to go into this thing with not making any moves? Stern's not going to do that. Listen, the Sterns, we responded. We as the fans responded. I was at like a 75% of the home games last year, and they packed the building. Tuesday nights, full house, rocking. And what did they do? They just crash landed, nosedive right into the ground after a good month and a half, just terrible baseball for 3 or 4 months. And that's how they repaid us. Because after 2 years ago, Cohen came out and he said, we need more people in the stands. I'm losing money, blah, blah, blah. We responded. We put asses in those seats every single night. It was a lively place, Citi Field, last summer. And then as they lost, it was what it was, but they deserve to give us something. And I was telling people, just hang tight. You're running this guy out of town, Stearns, before the team even plays a game. You can't do that. You give the guy a little credit. And I guess that's New York. That's what the fans are. That's why it's so tough to come and play here, because you have to deal with that coming in here and just everybody killing you when you had your team that you're trying to build hasn't even played a single game yet. And I said, listen, if they're going to be terrible, if they're terrible in June, I'll be right there with you, bitching and moaning and screaming. But I'm going to give the guy a chance. Cohen waited a whole year for this guy. He waited for this guy. He wanted Epstein. Epstein wanted part ownership of the team. which, good for him. He's earned it, right? Red Sox, Cubs, he's earned whatever he wants. But Cohen doesn't want to do that. He wants full ownership of this team. He owns like 98% or something, 97%. He didn't want to give up anything. So then he waited for this guy, Stearns, for a whole year, got his man, gave him, I think, $100 million or whatever he gave him, and he turned over the keys to him. And he said, go build me my team. And I'm telling you, Stearns didn't want Alonso last year. But it was hard to get rid of him. It's hard to get rid of Alonso right after he hits that home run, right after that great run that the team had. That great run kind of might have cost us a year or so, which, well worth it. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. But he didn't want Alonso last year because remember how long it took and then what happened. And then Cohen finally stepped in, and I think Cohen dragged Stearns down to Florida with him to meet with Alonso, and they got it done, a 1-year deal, which is fine. I would have loved to sign Alonso to 2 years. But Alonso's going to get old here. They're going to be, Baltimore's going to be stuck with an aging Pete Alonso in 2 years. And it's hard to take that side because I feel like, because when I do take that side, I can't win, right? I think Alonso's going to have a big year this year. I think he might hit 35, 40 home runs. So I can't win that my side of the argument for 2 years. It's going to be 2 years before I can even come back and be like, hey, say, I told you, he got old. He does. Everybody gets old, especially power hitters, one-dimensional players like Alonso. And I love Alonso. Nimmo, I could do without Nimmo. I think Nimmo's been overrated forever. But that's fine. He's a child of God, so I don't want to burn here on the screen on my live stream. So, but hey, good night for the Mets. Good week for the Mets. Good week for the Giants. Right? It's all coming together here. If we could only get the Rangers to stop their rebuild and maybe fix the team, we'd have things going. The Knicks won by 200 points tonight over the Nets. Although I think random 5 people in here and myself, or myself and 4 other people in this stream right now, any 4 could probably beat the Nets, at least by 20. But the Knicks beat them by like 200. So big night for the Mets. Again, the news is the Mets get Freddie Peralta, Tobias Myers from Milwaukee, and they trade away Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams, 2 big prospects in their farm system. And you know what? People who are going to be upset with, I didn't want to give away Sproat and Williams for the rental. And listen, that's why you have a strong farm system. That's why you build up from the bottom up, because you have guys like this that you could ship off and get a star, a bona fide superstar, a bona fide star, a bona fide ace of your staff by shipping two of your prospects. And the Mets still have fantastic. The Mets still have great arms, right? McLean, McLean is going to be he's going to be the best player coming out of this thing, coming out of this year. Let's see how many players got. They all have in less than 2. Yeah, you're right. But that's because I think that, and nobody's saying it because they don't want to say it. I think that's to do with the fact that after this year, we might not see baseball for a while, because both sides are going to hunker down. The owners are going to bitch and moan about they need a salary cap. The players will never give them a salary cap. That's one of the strongest unions in the country, period. So I think they know, and I love these 3-year deals. I love them, and I think they're player friendly too. Players will hunker down and they will ruin the sport. They will take the sport into the toilet if they have to before they would give the owners the salary cap. And it's not going to happen. And I love the 3-year deals too. I think they're good, because when you give these guys 6 and 7-year deals, they're terrible. They're always terrible on the back end. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter who he is, no matter what. And then people come back at me and they go, well, what about Soto? And I think the Soto deal is the exception to the rule, because with Soto, when you have a player like that's going to probably walk into the Hall of Fame, that's going to be one of the great players of his generation, and you could get him, 15 years is outrageous. The back end of that contract is going to be just as bad. Back end of Soto's deal is going to be terrible, right? But if you could get 10 years of his prime, a Hall of Fame great player, you hope that he could bring you one or more titles. And if he does that, then it's worth it. Yeah, we'll still be sitting there, bitching and moaning the last 4 or 5 years of the contract. Oh, this guy's terrible. He's not he's a shell of himself. But if we could have a title in our pocket, we will gladly make that trade any day of the week. So that's why I think that but I think they're great for the players, right? It gives the players multiple big contracts in their career. Right now, usually the players go in, they get a 7 or 8 year deal, the big players, and that's it. That's their big contract. Now, granted, it's obviously, a couple $100 million, whatever it is, it's plenty of money. But with this, they get a 3, like Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette has opt-outs after this year and next year. Now, if Bo Bichette opts out, that means he had a great year. Because if he doesn't have a good year and he's terrible, he'll just stay in the contract and then collect the money that's owed to him. Yeah, Judge's deal too. But you know what? Judge has to bring them a championship, right? 1 or 2 home runs last year in the division series. It made you feel better about Judge. But come on, you go around talking about Yankees and this and it's World Series or bust. All Yankee fans do. How many World Series has Judge brought you to? Last one I saw he was in, he dropped the ball in center field, and the whole series blew up. Zach Wheeler took before he became. Yeah, exactly. Though Zach Wheeler was good on the Mets. He was a high prospect, but yeah, you're right. Some players just develop late. Look at look at Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent is going in the Hall of Fame. He was on the Mets for a while there, and didn't look like a Hall of Fame player. I'll tell you that much. Then he left and, all of a sudden became former Met, now good, which there's a long list of them. So listen, big night for the Mets. Freddie Peralta is going to be just fine. He's going to be the ace of the staff. Now just cross your fingers. We don't get the 2 weeks into spring training. Oh, he felt the twinge in his elbow. Right? Because then it's, Tommy John. And that's the problem, is these pitchers get so much money and they're so fragile. And all you need to hear is that soreness in the elbow. And it's like a year and a half before you see him again. So that could obviously derail, but you have no idea. You have no idea when they're going to get it. They all get it, supposedly. Everyone gets it. DeGrom had it. They all get it. Even back as far as like Isringhausen, when he was on the Mets, they just used him. He wasn't a starter. Turns out he was a great closer. But, what are you going to do? On a day when the third Met ever to wear a Mets hat on their plaque in Cooperstown gets elected to the Hall of Fame, Carlos Beltran, Mike Piazza, and Tom Seaver. Those are your 3. Because he's gonna wear the Mets hat. He's gonna wear the Mets hat. I actually had people. I had a guy in this show who Newsday reporter came on. He wouldn't vote for Beltran, and I think it's a shame that like Manny Ramirez he's now 10 years and he's gone. How do you tell the story of baseball without somebody like Manny Ramirez and A-Rod and Barry Bonds? That's a whole nother show though. But yeah, I think that's a shame. Listen, throw on that plaque that they failed a couple drug tests, put them in. Can we get Screwball? Yeah, I guess they could. But I don't. I mean, maybe. No, I don't think it's good. I think this is our guy now. Probably they have a. I mean, I'd love to have him. I'd love to get him, and I'd love to go get Skeen from Pittsburgh too. Build a super staff. But yeah, man, he got robbed, but it's his own fault. He did the steroids. But Manny Ramirez and Barry Bonds and A-Rod and Roger Clemens, those guys are Hall of Famers with or without steroids. So, I don't know. To me, they would be. And I don't, Bonds might not have hit 800, 700, whatever home runs, but he was a Hall of Famer. Roger Clemens was a Hall of Famer. Yeah, they're Hall of Famers. But Screwball, I don't think they're going to get Screwball. And I think the Yankees kind of like, once they saw that the Mets got Bo Bichette, they went and signed their guy. And, it's probably good for all sides. But now we got a starter pitcher that we desperately needed, that people didn't think they were going to get because the free agents were gone. Now what they've done, they've come in, they got Freddie Peralta, a big time starter, 17-6, 2.70 ERA, over 200 strikeouts last year, a 1.08 WHIP, and the Tobias Myers, his numbers, he pitched 2 years, not very limited. His record is 10-8. 3.15. He pitched 50 innings last year, 138 innings the year before. So we'll see. Maybe he catch lightning in a bottle there. And it's sad to see, Sproat and Jet Williams go, because they could have been, they might be big stars. Maybe 7 years down the line, the Brewers, or 5 years down the line, the Brewers are like, wow, they got an ace and they got a big time shortstop. So, I think it's a fair trade, and I think both teams will benefit from it. Mets needed this now. Brewers might benefit. They're going to, listen, these two are going to be in the major leagues this year. Sproat's going to be pitching for the Brewers, and Jet Williams is going to be in their lineup. So, they might get benefits from it right off the bat. But Freddie Peralta, listen, you can't go wrong. It's a can't miss, I think. I think it's 15 wins in the bank, easy, and we'll see how it goes. But I think the Mets and the Mets fans now owe Stearns a little bit of an apology, because he has gotten it done. They are now a better team right now than they were last year. And I think that's all you can ask for. They're a better team now than they were last year. Might they lose? Might they fade down the stretch again and lose a bunch of games and miss the play? Yeah, that might happen. There's no guarantees. But if you're looking right now at how they did in the offseason, I think it's a solid B+ now. Solid B+. And I think Freddie Peralta is a can't miss. And, you wish Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams the best. But that's it for me, guys. I got to get going. I was going to bed when, I heard this. I missed it by like a half hour. But either way, hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, like the page. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. We got a bunch of good stuff. We got lives on TikTok all the time. Check us out. And I promise you'll enjoy it. We do some good stuff around here. So that does it for me. Good night, everybody. Mets fans, you can sleep with a smile on your face tonight. Mets get Freddie Peralta for Brandon Sproat, Jet Williams. They also get Tobias Myers, a minor leaguer. A relief pitcher. I'm more confident, but I definitely think, yeah, maybe another pitcher. You know what? They might need another pitcher. Listen, if they could get another pitcher, take it. I'd take Screwball right off the rip right now. So that does it for me, everybody. I'm Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. See ya.